Before I included that QR code, and that's a mortgage payment calculator. Because my idea was if you keep this booklet for the rest of your life, right? You're gonna keep it in some kind of safe. I'm just kidding. But if you scan it, this one in particular takes you to Royal Bank, their payment calculator. Okay. So just whenever you Google mortgage payment calculator, Google is going to give you a bunch of options. If you go to advanced, that's the one I want you to choose. We'll just ask you some basic questions, right? How much do you want your mortgage to be? Like, what kind of house are you looking for? Let's try, just for simplicity, $250,000, which doesn't get you a whole lot. It narrows down, like you're looking at average 350 across the city, right? A decent home. But I'm going to go with 250 because there are areas where you can get houses for 250. 25 years is the amortization period. So that's how long. Most of us are going to do 25 years at first. Okay. And let's say we go for a monthly payment. And let's say our interest rate is 6.49, which is very high right now. Are you aware that the government has been raising the interest rates every quarter for a while to combat inflation? Because if the interest rates stay low, people buy houses all the time. Like they buy more so than if the interest rate is high, because now it costs more to finance. So the government wants to put a stop on that. Because every time you buy and sell, the houses slowly increase in value, and it increases faster. So 6.49 is high if you look back 10 years ago. If you go back 15, 20 years ago, this is actually still like, I bought my first house 15 years ago, and I would high five everybody with this interest rate. That's how happy I would have been, because they were coming down from 9%. They were coming down to this. I signed, and then a couple of years later, it went even lower. So I was kind of like, why did I sign, right? But you sign for usually 5 years at a time. You're locked in at that interest rate, but you are paying it over 25 years. So there's a bit of, I'm going to explain that a little bit more down the road. So let's figure out what our payment is. Any guesses? What are $1,000?
$50,000
a month?
No, 2,000.
Okay, let's see. This is your monthly payment. Ouch, right? Let's look. Yeah, let's look at this, the breakdown. This is what I'm interested in. It says interest cost for the term is $76,000. So in the 5 years you signed for, you're paying $76,000 in interest. Now you know. Now you know why banks are doing okay. Yeah. Interest costs, total interest costs. Like if you go over the entire 25 years and the interest rate stayed at that, you would be paying, watch this, interest alone, $251,000 over the 25 years. So you add your mortgage plus the interest, you will have paid $500,000, including the house, over 25 years. You're getting a heart attack, right? Not really. Guess what? Your house is also probably going to be worth that or more in 25 years. So keep that in mind, right? Let's do one more experiment here. I want to go back. How do I go back?
You don't.
You just don't?
Yeah.
This is different. Oh, it's up here. Okay. So let's try a different one. I'm going to try 250. Do you remember the payment we had earlier? 1,600, right? Guess what my interest rate is that I locked in 2 years ago? 1.97. 1.97%. What do you think my payment is going to be at that interest rate?
500.
Oh, I think that's a little bit too low. Look at that. 1,000 versus what? 1,600 was the other one at 6.49. $600 more a month if the interest rate is that big of a difference. So a lot of people locked in at that low interest rate a couple years ago. They locked in at that, and now it's time to renew. And they're like, oh yeah, it's 6.49, by the way, it's 6.49. Sign here, sir. Or miss, right? Like, what? Like my payment is gonna be $600 more a month. I used to pay this, all of a sudden you're gonna pay 1,600. So for a lot of people, it's very, very tough right now. Hey, it gets fancier than that. You can view this chart, which shows you, right? You start at 250K, and over time, right, the amount you owe is going down. So it's pretty cool to see that as well. It gets a lot more detailed than that, but we're going to leave it there for now. So, you can make a bigger down payment if you want and see how that's going to affect your payment. You can make an extra payment and see how that's going to save you money. We will do that down the road, but not today. Okay? So, pretty cool stuff. Sometimes we don't think about it, but you need to start thinking about that. Okay, let's go to page 3 here. And grab a highlighter as well. Is renting or buying better, right? So we're going to talk about the advantages of each. Advantages of buying. Page 3. So one of the advantages is that your payments are fixed when you're buying. You just told us it isn't. Well, for 5 years, you're guaranteed. If you lock in for 5 years, your payment is going to stay the same. If you rent, your monthly payment is probably going up every year, 2 to 3%. The landlords are entitled to do that. For any upgrades they do, when they redo the carpets on in the hallway, I'm like, yes, new carpets, smells so fresh. Guess what? It's going to be on your increase at the end of the year. Your payment is going to go up. So here it stays the same. When you buy a house, you build equity. And I'm going to explain that in a bit. But equity is huge. It's so powerful. I will show you why that is powerful. But when you have a mortgage, you build equity. When you have a house, I should say. When you buy a house, you can stay as long as you like and only move when it's convenient for you and your family. When you're renting, you're technically at the mercy of the landlord. If the landlord decides to sell, let's say you're renting a house and the landlord wants to sell it, the landlord can say, hey, it's time to move on, like I'm selling this, right? So not so much. If you buy your own place, you stay. You can cash in on the appreciation over time. That is linked with equity as well. Remember, a vehicle is a depreciating asset, house is appreciating. I'm going to skip this part. I'm going to go to 6. You have the freedom to do home improvements as you please, okay? As you like. When you rent, I needed to even ask for permission to paint a room, just to paint it. So I asked my landlord, can I paint it? Yeah, but you need to paint it back to white before you move. I was like, what? And that was the deal. You had to leave it the way it was when you got it. You can't take down a wall. You can't, right? Like to make it bigger or whatever, you can't do that. In a house, you can say, hey, I don't like this wall right here. I'm just going to remove it and then just make it more spacious, right? You can't do that when you're renting. So some more pointers down here. So these ones are, I would suggest to have 2 or 3 on your study sheet, right? So the advantages would be fixed monthly payment, oh, I'm off here. You build equity. You build equity. This is a big one for a lot of you. You may own pets, right? Like if a lot of apartments do not allow pets. You probably aren't even allowed a fish, right? My landlord said you technically aren't even allowed a goldfish. Like you can't have any pets if that's what the contract says. You can renovate at will. I'm just going to say that. So whatever you want to do, you renovate. You have the ability to own a yard. That's huge for a lot of people, right? You want your own backyard to hang out, to enjoy the summer days, or just to sit around a fire, right? This is another one. You can borrow towards the equity in your house. That's huge. You can borrow towards the equity in your house. And the other ones, I'm just going to say we highlighted a few other ones that are up there. You choose what you want to use for the advantages of buying, right? And now we're going to go for the advantages when it comes to renting. So let's go to page 4. I'm going to use maybe orange for this one. I'm just going to highlight advantages of renting. When you rent, you don't need a down payment. I want to minimize the amount of writing you do. That's why I don't make you. But this would be a downside of buying, right? Because there you do need a down payment. But it is an upside of renting. So it's an advantage of renting. It's if you need to travel, right, frequently. If you need to relocate often, then consider renting. Okay? It's easier to relocate. You don't need to sell your property. Sure, you're locked in for a contract sometimes for 1 year, but other than that, you just get somebody else to take over your lease and off you go. There's flexibility as to where you live. Some areas it's expensive to buy, but it's okay to rent. So you rent. Right? If you want to live on Corden or like that area, renting is probably more affordable than buying a house in that area. What else? I'm just going to say this one requires less upfront costs, and we're going to talk more about that. When you buy a house, there's a lot of upfront costs that add up to quite a bit. Renting, not so much. Okay, renting, not so much. 7, you don't have to pay for maintenance. That's huge. Landlord, my toilet is leaking. Okay, fix. Cost you $0, right? Oh, there's a leak in my coming down from somewhere. It's like, okay, fix, right? They have their crew. They're responsible for maintenance and repairs. So that's an advantage. So here it is. You don't need a large down payment. There was a time when I was buying my first home, they were desperate for buyers. They allowed you for a 0% down payment, but not anymore. Like now it's like mandated you need 5% down for a house. You don't need that for a renting situation. Initial startup cost are much lower. Sure, you need to maybe buy some curtains and whatnot, but other than that, compared to buying nothing, right? It is much easier if needed. A house, you need to first put it on the market, you need to sell it, the lawyers need to transfer the title. You may have to pay a penalty for breaking up your contract with the bank, just like a cell phone. If you pay it off, right, like you're obligated to stay. Lower maintenance costs. And the reason why I put lower, because some landlords, I don't know, maybe you need to change your own light bulbs. I don't know. So I wouldn't say no maintenance. I would rather use the word lower or much lower maintenance costs. Utilities are usually included. What are utilities? It's water, gas, electricity, cable, internet, etc. I know that some apartment blocks, you need to get your own cable and you need to get your own internet, but I think a lot of them are going with free Wi-Fi. Like I've been in many buildings where tenants get free internet, which is pretty cool. It's probably not the fastest, but free is free, right? So those are some. You do need a deposit. You need a 1 month worth of rent is usually your deposit, but you get that money back when you move out, right? So there we go. I hope this will help you out. There are many more, and maybe as I go along the unit, I might add some more, but this is it for now. Okay, let's keep going. 5 and 6 have more pros and cons of buying versus renting. So let's just keep going. Let's go to page 7 because I really need you to understand equity. I think my goal would be for you to at least have a vague idea what equity is. It's rather complicated sometimes, but let's make up this. This is technically a bar right here. Remember grade 11 bar graphs, histograms? Those were the good old days, right? So imagine, just for simplicity purposes, that you bought a house worth $100,000 and you put $60,000 down. You saved up 60 grand. Way to go, by the way, if you saved up that much, which means that your mortgage is still 40 grand. You still owe them 40 grand. I'll make an arrow here. You owe 40K. And I will make an arrow going to the 60. Down payment was 60K. Right? So technically at the very beginning, you have equity of $60,000 in the home. But something is going to happen over time. Hopefully. I should say there could be an exception. If something unexpected happens in the world, I don't know that, right? But let's make a straight line from the top of this bar, make it dashed. Right? This is our $100,000 line. Right? This is the 100K line. That's the value of your home at the very beginning. So there's the pizza slice effect, right? On the one hand, the value of the home is going up slowly or fast, it depends on the market. And what else is happening at the same time? The amount you owe the bank is going down, right? Because you're making your payments. So the equity wedge, like as time goes by, it goes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the amount of equity you have in the house goes up. So let's make a bar somewhere in here. So it doesn't have to be precisely there, but I'm just going to make a line like that and another line like that. Just make a bar like that. We're making a cross cut here. And let's say the value of the home is 120,000. At this point, at this cross cut, we do a market evaluation and your house is worth 120K. And at the same time, this part right here, you owe the bank 20K. You owe them still 20 grand. You started with 40, now you owe them 20 grand. Hurting your brain?
Yes.
I'll make it as least painful as possible. If you owe the bank 20 grand and your house is worth 120, how much is this piece going to be? 100,000 exactly. Okay. So I'm going to grab my orange highlighter and I'm just going to, if you can, I'm going to say, hey, remember your equity used to be 60? Now your equity is this whole chunk right here. Can you see just by looking at the orange sections that it's bigger? I hope you can see, right? Your equity has grown. So this is your equity. So you build equity in two ways, by paying it off and by the market just determining the value of your home and driving it up. Let's do one more towards the end here, just to make that point. Somewhere over there. And let's say I'm going to make an arrow going in there. Let's say you owe $5,000 at that point. 5K. And let's say the value of your home is now $175,000. That makes this chunk right here, 175 minus 5, that would be 165K in equity. Sometimes this is why people are turned off by investing and stuff, because of terminology. But really, if you just think about it, right? Equity is basically what you would have if you would sell today and pay everything off that you owe. That's equity. Have you heard of net worth? Someone's net worth? Not quite, because net worth would have to include everything you owe. You could own a car, jewelry. You could own a classic car collection. So you would include everything. But equity is just basically your house. So let's put this in words. Here it is. Equity is the amount of money you would keep, the amount of money you would keep if you were to sell the house and pay off the remaining balance. Balance. Let me just move that up for you. That's equity. And how is that cool? How is that important? Can you touch that money? It's in the house, right? But there's a way to access that. And it's the bank. It's called the bank. The bank loves you having equity. So I have equity, right? So I tell my banker, can I have $20,000 to buy a car? And they're like, let me see, right? Oh yeah, you've got equity. You've got 100,000 equity. You take the 20 grand and you spend it on candy for all I care. Like they honestly don't care because they know you have money in your house. So let's say for whatever reason you would not pay the loan, they can come after your house and just get it that way, right? So equity is a very secure collateral for them. What's collateral? It's what you put against a loan, right? Collateral. They want to know do you have money somewhere that we can access to get our stuff back, right? So they love that. So if you want the boat, if you want to travel, if you want to visit family, we want to fly somewhere, and it costs 20 grand or 30 grand. If you have equity in the house, they will give you a loan, no problem, no questions asked. Well, they will ask you some questions, but equity is huge, right? You do not have this power if you rent. You just don't. It doesn't belong to you. So there are two ways to access that money I was just saying. This is on page 8. And after this, we'll do some math. Home equity line of credit, it's called this. And after today, you're going to see this somewhere in some point in your life, right? So home equity line of credit. You can access your equity on demand. Okay? You only pay for what you borrow for the amount you use. So that's the line of credit. So I don't know if you ever have a line of credit, but I have a line of credit. It is almost like a credit card, but it's with your bank. So they will say, I don't know, let's say I have $15,000 line of credit. It's there for me to use if I ever need to, if I want to buy a car this weekend, I can go and just withdraw money from my line of credit, go buy that car cash, and then I will just owe the bank. But it's like on demand. You can use it anytime you want. You don't have to make an appointment to see them. It's just you access at any time. That's one option. Then there's the home equity loan. This one is hell. That's just what it is. It's a loan, right? And why would you want to take a loan? This one, let's make a line here. You can bunch up all debts into one. Okay, that's what. Have you heard of consolidating debt? This word right here. Consolidate means you bunch everything up into one. Only one payment. Only one payment to worry about. This is way down the road for you. This is still ways away because at the beginning you won't have a whole lot of equity. Guess what? The banks don't give you all the money for the entire equity that you have. They're smarter than that. Like let's say you have 165,000 equity, they won't give you 165,000. They'll probably give you up to 100. Right? They're comfortable going quite a ways in, but not all of it because they don't want to lose, right? because they know the market could collapse, and so they're always safe. They're always on the safe side. So consolidating debt, if you ever listen to the radio, I don't know how many of you listen to radio anymore, but consolidating debt is on all the time. Do you struggle with debt? Do you owe a lot of money? Consider consolidating, right? Which means is put them all in one, and then you just have one payment, and it's usually at a lower interest rate. Credit cards they charge 19 to 25% interest rate. That's crazy. So if you go here, it's a lot less. All right, let's do some math. All right, go to page 10. I'm skipping some of the things, and if time allows, I will come back to it. This is what I need you to remember today. When you see the word the GDSR, I need you to know what that stands for, right? So make sure you follow along. It stands for gross debt service ratio. And it basically, banks use it to determine if you can afford a house. Can you even afford the house you're planning on buying? You don't have a say. They determine that for you, okay? So the GDSR must not exceed 32%. That is key there. So remember the 32. It's going to come back. To calculate someone's GDSR, we use the following formula. This one is on your formula sheet, but I'll tell you already that it's not, should I say, as pretty as this one? I don't know if you would consider this one pretty, but it has a lot more detail. I want you to use a different color and highlight monthly on all of them. You need to make sure that all of the amounts you plug into this formula, if you're sleeping, make sure you're awake for this one. All of those numbers need to be monthly, right? All of them need to be monthly. So if you have annual or yearly, you need to turn them to monthly. And I think you all know that that means dividing by 12, right? You need to do that, or else you're not going to get the right answer. And don't forget about the times 100 at the end here. If you're writing on your formula sheet hoping you're going to bring that to the exam, you're not going to be able to. Okay, so don't rely on your formula sheet like with little notes or whatever. It's your study sheet that you get to bring in. Okay, so that's why I would suggest put this one on your study sheet. You can write on it, you can highlight things. You can't do that because you're going to get a brand new one on the exam. It'll be at the end of the booklet. You rip that one out. Okay. So this is the formula to calculate the GDSR. So if they ever ask you to calculate it, boom, it's literally just plug in and go. That's what it is. So these three items up here are called housing costs. So the monthly housing costs must not be greater than 32% of your income. If someone's GDSR is greater than 32%, the bank will not approve it. Okay? And here is this is your income. That's 100%. And so the idea is that only a third of it, only about a third should be going towards housing costs. Does that make sense? Why would you say that? Why would you force me to do that, Mr. Dirksen? I'm not doing that. That's the banks, right? Housing costs. Because they know that you also need to have other responsibilities, like you need to eat, you need to pay for transportation, bus, whatever, car, you need entertainment, right? So if the banks wouldn't have this in place, you would have what happened in the States in 2008 when their market collapsed, because they gave mortgages to just about anybody. There was no system in place to make sure you didn't buy something you couldn't afford. And you also don't want to be house poor. You know what? I don't know if you've heard that term before, but if you buy a house that is so expensive, you might be able to just make the payments, but you can't do anything else. You can't go out shopping. You can't go, to a game or concert or movie because you're like, all your money's going to your mortgage. You don't want to do that, right? So here are the housing. Those three things here come back here. So the mortgage is a loan towards real estate. Guys, it's a loan, all right? Mortgage is a loan, but it's towards real estate. And it usually can be paid off for longer periods of time. That's why we call it a mortgage. And then property taxes, all homeowners or condominium owners need to pay local tax to the municipality. This pays for infrastructure, road maintenance, snow removal, waste collection, teachers, you name it. Hospitals. Okay. Formulas, some more formulas. So the maximum housing cost, this is your formula for that. So you basically just take your income and multiply by 0.32. And there's the 32% again, right? Then there's the maximum monthly mortgage. That's when you, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use two different highlighters that I haven't used yet. And I'm going to highlight property taxes here and property taxes here, like that. And you're going to go heating costs and monthly heating here. We're almost done. Like I need 10 to 15 more minutes, and then you'll have the rest of the class. So to get the mortgage payment, right, you just take your maximum housing amount and subtract the heating and the property taxes from it, and that's going to leave you with the maximum mortgage payment you're able to afford. Okay. So let's go do some math. We're going to use these two first, and then we're going to use the big one up there next. Let's go to the next page, page 11. Go ahead. So here's page 11. So all of yours have a combined family income of $5,800. Let's, I want to add something here per month. It didn't make it into this sentence here, but it's $5,800 per month. That's gross before income taxes. So we always consider everything before income taxes have been taken off. Another word I want you to circle maybe is combined. Combined family income. What does that mean? All sources. There could be, I get money for my children from the government every month. That can be added to your income. If you get EI, if you're on EI, you can put that on your income, right? So all of those combined. So what's the maximum they could spend on housing? So you just go like this, max housing. You just take the 5,800. And we know that the maximum we can spend on housing is 32%. Remember the third of the pie chart? That's all you're able to spend on housing. So we go this times that. It's $1,856 per month, I should say, that can be spent on housing. Housing costs. Guys, for us, housing costs are three things: property taxes, heating, mortgage payment. What about the other things? Was there like there's I use water, I use all the other things. Like, what's up with that? This is what the banks have come up with, and you just go with it, right? The Olivers estimate that the houses they're looking for will cost approximately, let's highlight some of the important things. It's going to be 180 per month on heating. Property taxes will cost approximately 3,800 a year. What is the maximum they can afford? The maximum payment. Okay. You see this word per year here? That should be like 10, 10, 10, right? We're going to divide that by 12 right away. In this particular unit, we want everything in monthly amounts. So if you divide that, it's the equivalent of saying $316.67 per month. Let's highlight the month here. So the maximum monthly mortgage payment, max payment, is going to be, watch this guys, you determine that you can spend $1,856 on all three items. So you're going to subtract the heating, and you're going to subtract the monthly property taxes. And what is left can be spent on the mortgage payment. So in this case, they are able to afford $1,359.33. So on housing, all three combined $1,856. On the mortgage itself, only that much, right? To be honest, these questions are on the exam not very often that you see these ones, but they do show up. It's the next one that is very common, the one I'm about to show you next. So come with me here. Make sure you write this down, okay? And it's gonna look a little weird at first, but trust me, we'll get there. Everything looks weird in this booklet, Mr. Dirksen, come to think of it. Property taxes, $3,600. Xavier wants to buy a house. Property taxes are that much per year. Heating costs, right? Heating costs are estimated to be $250 per month. He looks up an online calculator and determines that the mortgage payment, so here it is, mortgage payment is $1,450 per month. So perfect. Those are already two things that are on a monthly basis there. And then we have the income. Earns $55,000 per year. We don't like that, do we? Here's my, I'm going to make it look weird at first, but you can later on do whatever you want. So here it is. Gdsr calls for monthly payment. That is mortgage payment. It calls for monthly tax, property tax, and it calls for monthly heating. Those are the three things that we consider housing costs. Then we need to divide it by the monthly income. All of that technically gets multiplied by 100 to get a percentage out of that. I'm going to start with a formula. You don't have to do that when you do a question like that on AC or test. But here we go. My monthly mortgage payment is right there, $1,450. Plus the property taxes. Let's go get the property taxes. They're over here, correct? Look up where my pencil is. That's $3,600 per year. No good. So this is, I'm gonna make it stand out like that. I'm gonna do the dividing by 12 right in the formula. So it kind of sticks out. Plus the heating, it's already in a monthly amount, so no big deal. All of that is under, or over, I should say, my monthly income. The income, or what is earned, is $55,000 per year. You need to have 55,000 divided by 12 as well. Now you're having nightmares of grade 9, right? Fractions and fractions and more fractions. That's okay. It's going to be all right. And obviously we go times 100. That still has to stay there. But let's clean it up now. 1450 plus 3,600 divided by 12 is exactly $300. I kind of made it like that so that it's not too busy. Plus 250. All of that divided by 55,000 divided by 12. 45,8333 times 100. I used up way too much space. Sorry, guys. But let's finish this off here. 1450 plus 300 plus 250. That's 2,000 over 45,8333 times 100. Don't forget that. It's off the charts here. Okay? So basically, guys, just plug in, clean up, take your time, right? So now I'm going to go 2,000 divided by 45,8333 times 100. And if you want full marks, you better round this to 2 decimals, sorry. 43.64%. 43.64% is the final answer. That is the GDSR, the gross debt service ratio. Is that a good number? Let's read, because I want to make sure you're awake for this. I know it's not a whole lot of fun, I know it. Especially at your age, I don't think I would have. But watch this. If someone's GDSR is greater than 32%, the bank will not approve. Right? You need to stay at 32% or less. Like if this pie chart could be less, smaller, even better. The less you spend on housing, the better it is from the bank's perspective. Sure. It's 43.64, and we're almost done. Yeah, what did you get? Can I just see? What did you get?
3.636.
And I'm not making fun of you. I just want you to, if you get a 3 or something ridiculously low, check your work. Something when you forgot to divide something by 12, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad it happened, Caleb, because then it came up, because it happens all the time. You're not alone. Okay, so is it likely that Xavier will be approved for the mortgage? Explain. You must mention 32% in order to get this mark. It happens all the time. Okay, so you will say no, since his GDSR is high. No, it's positive. No, is greater than 32%. You must mention They are so picky with that, we can't even give you half a mark. If you like, you have to say it's greater than 32%. Okay. This is very common. You having to calculate the GDSR and telling us whether or not you will be approved. So 32% is the magic number here for GDSR. Expected value, what was the magic there? Positive or negative, right? GDSR is 32%. Is it above it or is it below it? So if this had been 31%, yes, because it will be approved because it's below 32%. So 32% is kind of like your mark. Should I do that? 32%. If it's greater is bad. If it's less is good. I'm trying things, guys. I'm trying. Can Xavier reduce his GDSR? How can he reduce the GDSR? How can you bring this number down so you can pass the test almost, right? You can pass the test, like the bank is performing a test on you whether or not you can afford it. So this is how you would do it. You can increase the income. How would you do that? How would you increase the income? Well, get another job, get a second job, or get a cosigner. A cosigner is if somebody puts their name on that mortgage. So it has to be someone you know well and they trust you, obviously, because if you don't pay the mortgage, you're going to come after that person. But they can include that income from that person as the combined income. Another thing you can do is decrease the mortgage payment. Mortgage payment. How would you do that? You can do by increasing down payment. Right? The more you put down right from the beginning, the less your monthly payment is going to be. Another way of doing it is increasing amortization. i.e., take longer to pay it off. That says increasing amortization. Sorry, it's a little chalk there. Those are ways you can still qualify, perhaps. And if you ever run into you blanking out, try things. For example, if I were to take the 2,000 and divide it by an income of, let's say, $6,000 a month, sorry, times 100, your GDSR would be 33.33. That's still too high. Like technically for us, it still wouldn't qualify. So you can try 2,000 divided by $7,000 a month, right? Let's say you make $7,000 a month. Oh, there it is. Now it's low enough, right? So you've increased your income until that GDSR reduced. Okay, I'm done. I'm tired of talking. You're tired of hearing me talk. I get it. You want to try this one before you go? Honestly, you can do it and probably still have some time to spare. I will give you the answer to calculate Ernesto's GDSR. It's 14.39% already. I'm telling you that already. So he's most definitely going to be approved because it's below what? What's that number again? 40, 50, 32. 32. Thank you guys. You were great.